Hello and welcome to the newest installment of Higher Expectations with the Hier Advantage. We are a multi-generational family of real estate experts in the Southern California. We'll be interviewing business owners, people of influence, and just all around good people. And today I am your host, Michael Hier, and my co-host today is going to be the newest blue belt out of Ultra Jiu-Jitsu in Santa Clarita.
Yep.
Joshua Vigil.
Thanks, man.
Yep. That's all you got to say about that?
Yeah, well, I just...
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I only bring that up because our guest today, the wonderful instructor, owner of Forge Jiu-Jitsu, my coach, Alex Perez.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Awesome. I mean, getting right into it, tell us about, what is it like being young Alex? Where'd you come from, man?
Coming up, so I grew up in the Valley, San Fernando Valley. Had a regular upbringing. My parents immigrated from Mexico over to the U.S., just chasing the American dream, hardworking people, instilled great values in me as I was growing up, things I think that I didn't appreciate growing up until, I got much older. So grew up in the Valley, moved around a little bit at first when I was younger, so it was hard to make friends. I actually found chess as a kid. So that was kind of one of the first things I got obsessed about. And it kind of shaped a lot of the way I thought about things, So I played chess as a kid. In middle school, found a really great instructor, someone that kind of has influenced me my whole life as to what a really good and dedicated coach is. He was actually my math teacher, Mr. Ralston. Shout out, Mr. Ralston. Before school, nutrition, lunch, after school, he would play chess with me.
That's awesome.
Taught me.
So little Grandmaster Alex.
Yeah. I mean, I started competing because of him. He said, "Do you want to compete?" I was like, "Sure." I was a kid. I was just obsessed with the game. Bought me my first board, my first chess clock, and he took me to tournaments. And, as a kid, again, you don't really appreciate some things. He's paying for my tournament fees to go in, pick me up, take me to tournaments, bring me back. And even then, I didn't really fully appreciate how much he was doing for me, And we had a shared passion for chess. We just loved it. So that really shaped a lot of my younger years. Went to some competitions. I was like a 12-year-old kid playing adults. And I would win. And I'd see grown men cry. Over a game. So when you're a kid, you're like, whoa, that's a different thing. Like, okay, I'm doing something different, But then I got to high school. He was no longer there. And just being a dumb kid, I stopped. So I ended up finding wrestling my senior year, San Fernando High School. They had a city championship wrestling team, a huge legacy. And I was always looking for a sport. I was like, you know what, let me try something a little bit more difficult. I was an out-of-shape chess nerd at that point, So I go into the city championship level wrestling room and just get destroyed. I'll never forget my first day finishing a practice, and I had to walk home still. And I sat down, I put my head down on the table, and I physically couldn't get up. That's how exhausted I was. I mean, I went from 0 to 100 in day one, right? And stuck with it, continued on, graduated, went to Valley College, started doing judo there, was captain of the judo team there for a while. And then school started getting expensive. So started working. And it's actually because of martial arts, funny enough, and my passion for it, and judo, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, that I kind of had success in the corporate world as well. And then we can get into that if you guys want. But growing up, grew up in the Valley, a Valley boy till I die.
Valley boy, there we go. Exactly. And I can relate to that wrestling. I didn't wrestle, but when I played football, when I first started playing football, I was the same thing. I did, push-ups until you couldn't anymore, and then I couldn't do push-ups the next day. And I went to practice, I was like just shaking, on the ground.
It kind of reminds me of like when I started training jiu-jitsu, the same thing. It's like we started, you didn't know what to expect. After our warm-ups that we did, I was so gassed. I just remember I was like, oh my God, I can't get my breath under me, and I was sitting there while they're teaching specific training, I'm just like, am I going to be able to get my breath, my breath before we start this? And then you just get into it and you start to build up that tolerance and then just build up the inner strength to be able to kind of do those things. And now it just comes very easily as far as like the conditioning and the cardio part of it. Mm-hmm. But I know what you mean by that. I felt that. And I think for the first like 6 months, my body was sore consistently every single day when we were training. So I can understand kind of where you came from.
I mean, I think we underestimate just how important that element is.
Yeah.
Where, you show up, you want to learn a martial art, you want to have a good time. But the real benefits that kind of, surpass the mats are those where you're tested. Mm-hmm. You're like, man, am I going to come back for another day? I'm so exhausted. It's like, man, should you kind of, you have to find that strength within yourself to come back from.
I agree.
I like to say people that do martial arts, especially jiu-jitsu, we're crazy. Mm-hmm. It's like, wait, you're going to show up again? Mm-hmm. You're going to show up again to another day of just,
choked again?
Getting strangled again, getting arm barred, But then it shows you that, okay, if I can just stick through it, within a few weeks, you feel that first, like, big jump of improvement. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, I am getting good at this. Oh, this is for me. And then, 6 months down the line, you're like, I'm killing it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I feel like I'm going to jump out of order a little bit because I want to get back to, judo, what that looked like in college. But you brought up a good point. Warm-ups. Because I've trained a few places, all across LA County. Your gym, by the way, is my favorite place to train. Instructor, I'll send you praises in a second here. But, what's your philosophy on warm-ups?
I'm very cognizant of my students' time. I understand you're taking time out of your day. You could be with your friends, your family, your loved ones. You could be doing a million different things. You're here. And you showed up to the gym for jiu-jitsu. I want to make sure you get as much jiu-jitsu as possible. Some of the warm-ups early, I came up just like everybody else. Mm-hmm. I did these warm-ups, trust me, the cartwheels, the 1,000 hip escapes every day. And I see the value in it. But at some point, there's like a point of diminishing return.
Yeah.
It's like after 10 years of doing cartwheels, you realize that, oh, I never use a cartwheel in jiu-jitsu. Why am I doing it every day? Mm-hmm. So I always allow a grace period before class starts to come in. We have a ton of warm-up equipment, your foam rollers, your resistance bands, warm up as you like. And there's all the guys are helpful at the gym. Mm-hmm. If you don't know how to warm up, someone will help you. I'll help you. We'll make sure just a couple warm-ups to get you going, right? And then right away, instruction. I've seen the good and the bad and the ugly of all the different gyms, right? I remember there was a gym I went to where the warm-up was 45 minutes straight of bodyweight CrossFit conditioning. And then they're like, okay, everybody's super exhausted. Cool. Now let me teach you this highly technical move.
Yeah.
You were too exhausted. So it's just like, okay, so what's more important? That 45 minutes of cardio and conditioning where maybe you take a weekend of partying and that's going to go away very quickly, or you focus on the skill building, the muscle memory, the understanding the concepts, the theories, really diving deep, and that'll stay with you much longer, right?
Yeah, I think that's super cool. I like the fact that you are putting yourself in the shoes of the people that attend your classes, and you're saying, you came here to learn jiu-jitsu. I'm going to give you as much time, to practice jiu-jitsu as possible. I've never been to a school where they've warmed up for 45 minutes. Our school typically will do about 5 to 7 minutes worth of warm-ups just to get the heart rate going. And then we jump right into specific training or takedown entrances, things like that. But I do think that's super cool from the instructor standpoint, looking at it as their students' time is valuable and that you implement that. That's super cool.
Yeah. And I don't want to make it seem like I say no school should have a warm-up like that.
Yeah.
Totally understand if you do.
Yeah.
I just, every gym should have its own flavor, its own environment, and the things that they emphasize in the way they want to run their schools, I came up just like you guys, I came up, I started as a white belt out here, and exactly what you said, I put myself in the shoes of my students, right? I never stopped being a student, so I want to make sure I just give my students exactly what I would have wanted when I was coming up.
And Michael, and I can tell that that you really look out for your students in that way, because when I talk to Michael, he has a lot of praises about you all the time, because we share a lot of stories back and forth between both of our gyms. We obviously don't train together. He's invited me to open mats. You've also invited me as well.
He's scared of tea.
Everyone's friendly, I promise, brother. Come by.
No, but yeah, Michael praises you so much, and I think he looks up to you a lot as far as being an instructor and just your past knowledge and experiences that you pass down to him. And he teaches me some cool things that that he's learned in classes, and I do the same back and forth. But I'm happy that that you're able to experience this and kind of hear from his perspective, his upcoming and stuff. I think it's super cool.
Yeah, man. Again, like I try to duplicate, if not even enhance, some of the greatest parts I had in my jiu-jitsu journey for you guys. You just mentioned open mats, right? So my favorite things to do was to get together with friends and start just picking apart jiu-jitsu. We were probably messing it up, but we had this shared passion for something, right? And we didn't all belong to the same gym. Some of us, we would meet up in someone's garage that had mats, and we'd just start talking jiu-jitsu. And it was some of the best memories I've had. Some of those guys, 10 years ago, we weren't on the same team. Now we've been training for the last 5 years, right? So you've developed this jiu-jitsu community that I think is really important. I think it's something that's really underemphasized in a lot of jiu-jitsu schools. It's like, okay, does your school connect to the jiu-jitsu community as a whole? Like I say, I'm very proud of my students. Yeah. Please, come check them out.
Pardon the quick interruption, and we hope you're enjoying the show so far. Now, if you know anybody or you yourself are thinking about buying or selling a home, we'd love to help you out. Feel free to text us, call us, or message us on any of our platforms. Otherwise, let's get back to the show. Absolutely. We love having you and getting into it. So what did that transition look like from, judo? You said you're the captain of the judo team. What rank did you get there belt-wise? And then how did you transition into, jiu-jitsu? Yeah, you sound like a very, well-rounded grappler, starting in wrestling, going to judo, now you're a jiu-jitsu instructor.
Mm-hmm. So you guys see the jiu-jitsu culture as it is now. Mm-hmm. Very refined, very organized, a lot of access to even just, T-shirts, rash guards, gis, personalized stuff, right? Back then, man, it was harder to find. Mm-hmm. It was a different time. Just to find quality training wasn't as easy as it is now, right? So jiu-jitsu wasn't something that was very wasn't in the mainstream as much as it is now. So you heard whispers about it. You heard anecdotes, from people telling, "Oh, this is cool, this is great," but you didn't know. You didn't know for sure. So I had wrestled in high school, and then I started doing judo at Valley College. I got my green belt there. And there was some grappling in judo. And that became one of my favorite parts, The
newaza.
The newaza, exactly. And it's actually what I was very well known for. I won judo tournaments using basically just jiu-jitsu back in the day. So I'm like, okay, I could toss this 300-pounder, or I could sweep him and just pin him, look for a choke. Awesome. So I had friends from high school wrestling that moved on, and MMA was really making itself known. The early days of the UFC, this was that era where it was really hitting the mainstream. People were starting to pay attention to it, and guys with wrestling backgrounds that didn't have a career after high school looked at MMA. They're like, okay, let's check out MMA, right? So to make a long story short, those friends got me into Muay Thai, started striking, did that for 3.5 years, was wrestling, was doing judo, and a little bit of groundwork, right? One of our friends had a friend at a local rec center, and they had mats there. So every Tuesday night, they would open up the rec center, and you could just come in and train. There was no instructor, and it was just a room full of barbarians.
Pure chaos.
Chaos. Yeah. Everything that's illegal to do in a tournament was like a standard day there at that room. Yeah. And it was just guys with a passion for training. So this is where, you'll hear the old school guys like me say oh, you guys are spoiled these days. Back then, we did not have YouTube. We did not have a lot of information. It's just that guy kind of taught you something and you hoped it was legal, Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then a friend of mine walks in a now friend of mine. I'm sorry, I didn't know him at the time, but his name was Gennaro. Comes in, and he's from a traditional Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school. And he came in and was doing beautiful Jiu-Jitsu. And I was inspired. I was the only one in the gi because of Judo. I was trying to convince these wrestlers, hey, jump in this gi. They're like, no, we're not putting on that suit. Like, forget that. Like, come on, man. Yeah. Nope. Gennaro came in, taught me 2 moves. I started training, and instantly I could implement them. And I was like, oh, this is something different. So I loved MMA. I continued on. Some friends actually got in, the scene wasn't what it is now. There was underground MMA like going on. So this little team from this park, we called ourselves the backyard boogie team.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We had some underground fights, and everybody was killing it. And it was great. It was fun. It's like it's a time that's always going to live inside of me as an instructor. Just remembering what a small group of dedicated guys could do.
Yeah, so that kind of brings me to a question then that I have is that was there a moment when you started training jiu-jitsu that you knew that it was going to be a lifelong journey?
So that's exactly the mindset that got me fully committed to jiu-jitsu. I was doing Muay Thai, I was doing Judo, still wrestling. And then I found a real jiu-jitsu school and started doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I realized I was doing too much. I wanted to get really good at one thing. So I looked at longevity. I looked at Judo guys. And very few could do it at a high level past 30. Bodies destroyed. I looked at wrestlers. Same thing. Knees, shoulders, really messed up, neck problems. Strikers, boxing, Muay Thai, kickboxing. The head trauma alone was something that'll kind of be like, oh, got it. The only guys I saw hold up at a high level were Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys. I saw guys in their 50s tapping out 20-year-olds in a full match. To this day, I know guys with black belts in their 70s. Shout out to Yoshi.
Super cool.
Yeah, who, if you close your eyes and roll with him, you thought you were rolling with a 20-year-old.
Ooh,
Wow. This little Japanese guy, very unassuming,
Yeah.
Wrinkly 6-pack.
Oh, I think I've seen him on a video on YouTube.
I've thrown some pictures of him just like for inspirational
oh, that's awesome.
reasons, and very nice guy. You train with him, you have this hard match, and then afterwards you just hear, "Oh, Alejandro, very good. Today you smashed me. Oh, thank you, Yoshi." So longevity was the reason why initially I picked jiu-jitsu to go 100% in.
That's
I stopped
awesome.
everything else. I'm like, jiu-jitsu all day long.
So is that where you started coaching with those underground fights? Were you coaching
You know what? I was
barbarians?
actually refereeing some of those fights. Again, I repeat, it was a different time. There wasn't a lot of access. I mean, it was literally like a guy had keys to a rec center, and then he'd pack it full of people and then lock the doors. And like your EMT was a guy with like a first aid kit. The referee was like, who knows the rules? Like, I know the rules. All right, you're refereeing.
You're making up the rules right now.
It's like, all right, weigh in, 10 pounds, you're close enough. Get in there.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of a different time, right? But coaching actually came a little bit later on. I didn't plan on ever being a coach. In fact, if I told you guys the truth, when I first started, seeing how good guys were, I never thought I'd be a purple belt, which is like a ranking system inside that takes maybe 5 or 6 years to get to, give or take. I looked at guys like that. I'm like, oh, that's never going to be me, And all these years later, I'm a black belt and an instructor. It's like, oh, okay.
That's awesome.
So this is why I always want to encourage my students and make sure they know, like, whatever you think you can do with this, you're going to do much more if you really just stick to it. I'm no different than you guys. I used to look at guys with black belts like, oh, with this reverence of maybe I'll never achieve that, right? That's why I stay very, very casual and I keep open communication with my students.
That brings up a good question. So what separates someone that sticks with jiu-jitsu long-term to like a hobbyist that just comes in, tries it for a few weeks, and then they never show up again? Is there something that you see in somebody when they first walk in, you say, I can tell that they're going to stick around, or I could tell this person is coming in, but they're not going to be here past a week?
There's clues. You'll see someone that comes in and is very enthusiastic. But even that, I've seen people their first day having the best time of their lives, never make it back. I've seen some guys that I thought, oh man, first day, he had a tough first day, never leave the gym. They're there for years afterwards. One of the qualities it takes is persistence. You have to be mentally tough. Like I said, I'm a regular guy. But you have to want an almost like uncommon desire to get good at this, right? And you develop it by just wanting to come back for another day, come back for another day, come back for another day. Usually when I know someone's going to stay is usually right around like the 2 or 3 month mark.
Gotcha.
That's when I'm like, okay, this guy's hooked. You realize that every day you're getting better at this. And if you have a passion for it, you're going to come back, you're going to stay with it, and it gets addicting. What's hard is that first 3 months, because it's like, okay, you know, when people come in, they usually don't come in already with a lot of discipline, right? So someone will come in very inspired. Maybe they saw David Goggins' video. Maybe they saw something,
They're going to come in and carry the boats.
Exactly. Who's going to carry the boats? Today's my day.
Yeah.
You know, so that'll unfortunately wear thin. It'll last for a couple days, maybe a couple weeks, right? So then what's left when there's no more inspiration? Discipline.
Yeah.
You know? Now you're ready to carry the boat, my friend? Like, now that you don't feel inspired, can you do the hard thing and just show up, right? And then eventually once you develop the habit, then, okay, you've developed the habit now, you have your schedule, you're consistent, now you start reaping those rewards, and then you see what it's truly about.
Yeah. That kind of brings up another thing. You're bringing up a lot of good things that are triggering these questions in my mind. But so like blue belt blues, right?
Yes.
You hear about it.
Yeah.
I just recently, like Michael mentioned, I recently just got promoted to a blue belt. And for me, I told my instructors, I said, like, I don't ever want to stop training. So the reason I got into training, just a little bit of history about me, is that my son, I wanted to get him in some form of martial arts, and then I ended up getting him into jiu-jitsu. He was training about a year, and then he came up to me when I was sitting there. I would watch all his classes, and he came up and he said, "Dad, are you gonna ever start training?" And once he asked me that, I said, he's asking me for a reason, and he wants that common bond between each other. So then I signed up for the adult class, and then I just fell in love with it. You know, I liked it, and I had interest in it. I was like, oh, maybe I'll do it one day. You know, and when he said that, that's kind of what amplified it. And then we started. Now he competes at competitions. That's where I see you a lot at these competitions, which I have to say that I think that is super cool as the instructor and the owner to be there at all these tournaments with these kids that are competing or these adults that are competing. I see you there, and you're there in their corner, which I think is super cool because some people don't always get that support. You know, I see kids sometimes when they compete, they don't even have a coach sitting in that chair. And it's made me want to jump in that chair just to kind of help them with what limited knowledge that I have, you know, which is not a whole lot, you know, but it makes me want to just jump in there because I do think that people should have that. And I think that people that obviously attend your school definitely do have that. But for me, going back to the blue belt blues, is I've never had that inkling of a thought. If anything, the thing that keeps me from it, if I don't train 3 to 4 times a week minimum, I feel like for me, like I just don't feel right. Like my mental state and stuff, I just don't feel like as calm and as happy as I normally am. I'm like, I need to train, you know, I need to train. Yeah. But I don't know why people go through those fluctuations, but I think you kind of mentioned it, is that it's the mental part of it, right? It's like you're striving as a white belt to get to a blue belt. And as soon as you get that blue belt, you say, oh, I accomplished the goal, right? And then you see people that walk away from it and they say, okay, I'll come back at some point, but they accomplish that blue belt. For me, my son asked me after I got my blue belt, he says, so Dad, how long are you going to compete for? And I told him, as long as my body allows me to. I have no reason to stop.
Yep.
But if my body tells me later down the road, depending on whatever belt I make it to, you know, the goal would be to obviously get to a black belt. But if my body tells me, you know, a few years down the road that, hey, you can't take this anymore, then I'm going to step away. You know, at that point, the love will still be there. He'll still be involved in it. But I was just kind of curious from your perspective, being in jiu-jitsu a long time, what do you see the reason why people stop training after they get promoted to blue belt?
So you touched on some really great points. Let's go to the first one. How you talked about the wear and tear, right? I had my share of injuries just like anyone else. Back in bad days, no one really helped you. No one explained proper nutrition, like different things you can do just to recover. So that's why, again, I try to do things a little bit different at my gym, right? We have one of the dads who built us a cold plunge. I'm big on cold therapy. So really great for circulation, speeds up like, any kind of little aches and pains you have. Really great for circulation, especially soreness, and sleep. Oh, you've never slept as good as you have after an ice bath.
Name another jiu-jitsu gym in the valley with a cold plunge. You won't find it. Come visit us.
And that's available to everyone. I promise you guys, it's got a sand grade filter in there. Like we keep it very clean. Don't think it's just like a tub of water sitting there for everybody. Like no, oh no. It's very high tech. Shout out to Julio Lopez for the great build. We have a sauna available as well. Resistance bands, foam rollers. We have guys that are great with PT. Casey is one of the best massage therapists I think in the state. He massage he has high end clients. I guess I can't say who they are because they're not my clients, but very high end clients. And he's there offering his services and information to the team. Every day he's there, So that's what I wanted to do a little different. I'm not just going to show you guys the wear and tear of jiu-jitsu. I'm going to show you guys how to recover, how to build back from it, what's important. Don't eat a bunch of fried chicken and spicy food just before you're about to get on the mats. It's not going to work out, my friend.
Bad news.
Bad news right there. And everybody gets one. Yeah. Everybody, you have to test it a little bit. So, you realize, Michael Scott eating, a bowl full of pasta just before running a marathon, just sitting in your gut like a rock. So you learn, fruits, simple carbs, simple things closer to training are easier to digest. Proteins like meats, beef, stuff like that. After training is best. So you have the time to digest, right? I always say jiu-jitsu won't hurt you. Your ego will. Mm-hmm. The best thing about jiu-jitsu is tapping. You can stop whenever you want.
I tell this guy, he's like, man, my elbows hurt. And I'm like, are you tapping? No, I try to get out of it as hard as I can. And I'm like, dude, come on now.
Well, let me defend myself real quick. Sure. So what I told Michael is that I try to see what my threshold is. I want to see what my threshold is, what I can take, because I've competed Jiu-Jitsu World League. I've done Naga.
Beautiful.
And I wanted to test myself just to see where I was amongst competition. But if I were tapping at every little thing that I felt like is uncomfortable, I feel like I wouldn't be kind of where I am progressing in jiu-jitsu as I am right now. But Michael is right to an extent, because there are times where I'm like, I want to see how long I could take this choke, to where I start to see it kind of narrow in a little bit. Sure. And then I tap, and then I say, okay, and then it comes back in. I'm like, okay, I didn't pass out. But he is right. There is a certain extent where I do try to get out of these arm bars. I try to hitchhiker, I try different ways to get out. Because I want to see what my threshold is. I want to see where it can take me, but you're right.
And I 100% understand. And I love to tell people this. It's like, look, if you want to test jiu-jitsu, it'll pass every time. Mm-hmm. If you want to see how far before something bad happens, it's going to show you. Yeah. The only thing, I just want to make sure I clear that up for people, because people come in with that apprehension, oh, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to get hurt. Yeah. The opposite. Mm-hmm. As soon as you want to. So if you feel that, please tap early. But on the other side of it, again, I came from that rough and tumble time, If you want to test it, you want to see your limitations, go ahead. Yeah. Which is, again, why I have so many of the recovery options there for the guys.
Smart.
It's not for my hobbyists. It's for my guys that are just no, I want to win, coach. Okay, obviously I can't reprogram you, so I have to at least do my best by helping you how to come back from that, right?
Yeah. I feel like that's a lot of the mental fortitude, because your joints, I don't know. I say tap early to the joints, everything, oh, you foot lock, if I put the boot on, I can hang out there. But as soon as it starts to get close, I'll tap. But, when it comes to chokes, hey, I'll fight that thing until, I can't, you know?
And that's the thing. With strangles, I'm much more, I'm watching like a hawk every class. I'm looking for, the ego battles going on. I'm like, okay, let me stop that right there, because, it's... just calm them down before they go too crazy. But when it comes to strangles, they're so safe. Mm-hmm. Even in some of the worst case scenarios, they just look very scary. If you've never seen someone that doesn't want to tap, and it takes about 8 to 10 seconds for someone to go out, right? So that's a lot of time. Mm-hmm. You have plenty of time to make that decision. Okay, am I going to tap or do I want to go out?
Yeah. I don't ever want to go out. I just want
Nobody wants to go out, right?
Yeah, I just want to. I've had a classmate go out right next to me, and I was just like, oh my God. And I picked up his legs right away after I saw he went out, picked up his legs, and he came to. And he was looking at me. He was like, I wasn't just rolling with you. Uh-huh. And he was like, oh, I didn't go out. I was okay. And I was like, buddy, you were out.
I have a great story the first time I put someone out way back in the days of judo. But as an instructor, when we see someone go out, we're not as worried about the student because we know they're going to be fine. We've seen it a million times. The research is out there. He's going to be just fine. It's everybody's reaction to it because you're getting oxygen back to your brain. So there's this moment where your body's rebooting, you know, and it looks insane if you've never seen it before. So like we'll go over, like when I see someone go out, the last thing I want to do is like, oh my God, everybody. No. Just walk over, you know, I'm like, keep training. And I just, because it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
You know, you wake up, you don't know where you are. You may be drooling.
Yeah.
So it's just like, hey, man, you all right? Yeah, what happened? You went out, just stay down for a second, you know, let yourself reboot. And the best thing is everybody has a dream. And they go, oh, that's my favorite thing to ask someone when they wake back up. I'm like, what'd you dream about, man? I've had everything. I had one guy dream about Dragon Ball Z.
What?
I had guys like, and they always come back like, I feel like I got 8 hours of rest. I feel so refreshed. I'm like, yeah, man.
That's great.
Don't make it a thing. Don't make it a thing, right? Because I remember what it looked like the first time I put someone out.
Yeah.
And I was freaked out. I was doing judo at Valley College. I was a few semesters in. And like I had a little reputation there, you know? So it's the first day we're waiting for the instructor to come in. And the mats are there. And there's this really big dude going around talking about the black belts he has. And back then, we didn't know what these belts were. We're like, man, maybe he is legit. We don't know. I was a young guy in my early 20s. Or I'm sorry, I was 19. I wasn't even in my 20s yet. And I was talking to a girl. So he's over there talking about this and that. And then I just hear one of my friends yell, go against Alex. Alex is pretty good. I was like, oh, man. He comes over, hey, man, let's train. I'm like, we're just waiting for Sensei to get here. Like, it's cool, man. He's like, don't worry, man. I'm not going to hurt you. I was like, great.
So
thanks,
that's not
man.
what I meant.
Yeah, like, well, you know, and like, I'm trying to talk to this girl.
And he's
Thanks,
calling you
man.
out in front of the girl.
Right?
Yeah, so you have to.
So especially when you're 19, right? Young and dumb. So I was like, all right, man, let's go. So in my head, I'm like, this guy might be like, he might be the greatest. Like, I'm just going to throw everything at him. So I snap him down, spin behind him, lock a choke in like quick. I'm like, black belt my ass. I got this guy, you know? Sorry for... So he brings his hands into my forearm to try to pull. I'm squeezing, and I'm just waiting to tap. I'm still a beginner at this, right? Now, it wouldn't have happened the same way. Now I know when, you know, I have a count in my head. I know when to let go at the appropriate time so everyone's safe, right? Even if it's an extreme situation. But when you're a beginner, you don't know. So I'm just like, I'm waiting for the tap. I'm waiting for the tap. He doesn't tap because his hands got stuck for a second. So as he went to pull his hands out to tap, I just see his hand hit the mat.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, hey, man, hey. I let him go, and he's out. And then there's some convulsing. Yeah, like there's a couple movements, right? And I just look around, and everyone's quiet. And I'm like, I just killed a man. Oh, my God, I'm going to jail. Like, I never put someone out. No one explained this to me. Everybody saw. I'm like, well, there goes, like, my future. Like, he wakes up a few seconds later going, what happened? I was like, man, you didn't tap. The room erupts in laughter. Everyone's making fun of this guy. Yeah.
That stinks,
For the rest of the semester, though, he was the nicest guy. Like a couple weeks later, Alex, I got a question. Can you help me? I'm like, yeah, man. Like,
so it was like a humbling experience.
it was a humbling experience, you know? A terrifying one for me, though. I'll tell you that right now.
Same.
As a new white belt, seeing someone go out like that and nobody giving you a talk about, like, this is what it's like, this is what it looks like, don't worry, they're fine, right? So a little PSA out there. Just let them go, give them some room, and they'll be okay.
So I want to jump into, so when did you start the school, Forge?
Yeah. So I was working in the corporate world, and I was training 5 days a week, teaching 5 days a week. Actually, I was training 7, man. Sometimes it surprised me how much I trained. Training 7 days a week and then teaching 5. I used to train on my lunch hour. And then at night I would teach. I didn't think that I was ever going to be an instructor. When I was a purple belt, I was visiting an affiliate school. They needed an instructor. They asked me to teach. I said, sure. I started teaching, and at first I liked it. I was like, all right, guys, let's get good. I did a tournament with my students. I won. I took gold. All my students lost. I felt terrible. I was like, oh, I've just been working on what I needed. So for the next year, I dedicated everything I could to these guys. I added classes at no extra charge. I just wanted us to be good. The next year, we went back to that same tournament. I didn't compete. I said, my focus is going to be them. They all won.
That's awesome.
And it was the greatest feeling.
Yeah.
And it really defined like, oh, this is great. This felt better than any gold medal I ever got, is watching them succeed, right? So I did that for years. I took a program from like 5 students to some classes I had like 50 students.
Wow.
Yeah, within like 3-4 years. So then I got to the corporate world. I got as high as I could. I was waiting for a promotion that was going to be great, potentially. The guy retired. I was up for the promotion, and they brought in someone from the outside, and they hired him instead. So I was kind of lost. And then 2 of my friends, Gennaro, who was actually the very first guy who got me into jiu-jitsu, and one of my coaches now, Steve-O, who I've known for 10 years, like, you're really good at teaching. You should think about opening up a school. Not getting any younger. If I'm going to do it, this is the time now. So I took the leap. I'm like, okay, let's do it. So I had trained all over the world. I've every time I traveled, anytime I went out, I've trained in South America, Mexico, Asia, all over the U.S. And some of my favorite places to train at were open air spaces. I was like, man, I remember being in Thailand, and it's really just a canopy, and like you're training and it's open air. Some of those summer nights were so amazing. You get this fresh air on top of the great feelings you get after training jiu-jitsu. And I was like, man, I wish we had something like that out here. So I was driving around, and I found Van Nuys Private Airport. And I found their airplane hangars. And I'm like, an airplane hangar? Like, oh, that would be great, I wanted to talk to them. They're like, you don't have an airplane? No. Damn, okay. But there was a CrossFit gym there. So I go into the CrossFit gym, and I basically say, I've looked at your schedule. 12 p.m. and 8 p.m., you don't have anything going. Let me sublease some space from you guys. They said yes. I was shocked. I'm like, okay, yes. Okay. They said yes. I grabbed some mats, quit my job, and I started Forge.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Where did the name Forge come from?
I just looked at my journey, None of it came easy to me. I was not anything. If you saw me as a white belt, you would not say that guy is a phenom, a natural. Oh, this guy's going to be a black belt one day. I've gone through every single struggle that you guys have had, from the questioning yourself to the physicality, all of it. Can you? All the doubts, everything. I promise, whatever you guys are going through, I've been there.
So that brings up a good question. Sorry. How do you help your students that they're frustrated with feeling of plateauing, at a certain belt, or they compare themselves to others? One thing when it comes to soccer, I coach soccer, and I've coached other things as well. But I always tell kids, don't compare yourself to others, because everybody's on their own journey, has their own story, and they're on different chapters during that story. Just because somebody's the same belt, maybe they're a little bit more advanced than you, that's okay. You'll get there at some point. But how do you handle that as an instructor?
That's great. So there's 2 things. I know my students really well. I'm there every single day for the most part. I probably know my students' games better than they know their games. So when they reach a plateau, it's usually because they're just repeating the same patterns over and over again. Because it's hard. If you're having success with a move, why would you ever stop?
Exactly.
But unfortunately, if you just keep repeating the same patterns, you plateau. Gotcha. So the only way to get good is you have to, especially from that white to blue belt phase, you have to go back and find a game that's completely different. And now you have to build that from white to blue. And people are like, I have to suck? I have to go back to feeling like, oh no, I'm not good? I have to go back to potentially tapping? So that's one of the tests of jiu-jitsu. It's like, okay, you've developed this game, and I know it's your A game. But for whatever reason, guys are scared. They're like, I don't want to go away from this A game. I'm winning. I don't want people to think differently. I mean, I have a reputation as a blue belt here.
I'm tapping a lot of people.
Yeah, oh, I'm great, But unfortunately, you have to put your ego aside.
Yeah.
And you find this new game. And eventually, you work at it just like you did your A game. And suddenly, you have an A game and now another A game. Maybe a B game, but now you're much more well-rounded, right? And suddenly, when you can do that one time, you realize that's how you stop plateauing. Oh, I got to go out of my comfort zone. The other thing is problem solving. Sometimes people feel they plateau because they're just getting beat by the same guy over and over every day. And absolutely, if you're 110 pounds and you're fighting the 250-pound guy and you're like, Coach, how do I beat this guy tomorrow? Listen, we got to work a little harder than that, right? But if it's someone that's a contemporary, someone close to your level, and you're getting submitted by him repeatedly the same way, there's a mistake you're making that you need to fix. So that's why I keep very open communication with my students. Because I used to be scared to like ask my instructors a question. I'm like, oh, they're gonna think I'm terrible. They're gonna judge me. They're gonna think I'm not, So I'm very sarcastic at my gym sometimes. So I've told my guys sometimes, like, listen, guys, let's get this out of the way now. To me, you're all terrible. You're all horrible. You all suck. You all need work. Now that we got that out of the way, cool. Ask me as many questions as possible. Before class, after class. If you just see me sitting there, take advantage, come ask me a question.
I love that.
And especially if you're getting submitted repeatedly, look for the repeating patterns of what's going wrong in your training. Don't just forget about them. Hold them. Run to me and be like, I need to fix this now.
Yeah.
And we do. We break it down right there. We fix it. Okay, now you got your homework. Now you have something to grow with, right? So getting out of like stagnant patterns like that are really great.
I love that.
The hard part from white to blue belt is the ego side of it. I just got this blue belt like I'm a monster. What do you mean I got to let go of my A game? Just for a little while, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully that helps.
No, it does. That was a great answer. Yeah, because I saw it from a different perspective too, and you're showing me from an instructor perspective, which makes perfect sense to me. One thing you touched on, I'm jumping back when you're talking about the wear and tear in the body, the injuries.
Yes.
So in the beginning, when I first started, I was getting injured a lot. I felt like I was getting injured a lot. I broke my toe, shooting on somebody, or during a warm up or something.
Those damn warm-ups.
Yeah, exactly. I popped my elbow a few times here and there, and I was like, hey, I need to give some days rest in there. But then I read something online said there's a difference between being hurt and then being injured, and that when you're hurt, and my instructor, his name's Pedro Serrano, he also brought it up to me. He says, if you just stop training every time that you're hurt, you're never going to really progress. And he says, if you're hurt, let's say your arm's hurting on one side, he says, figure it out with the other hand, and don't use that hand as much. It's going to make you better. And he says, if you're injured, that makes sense, right? If you have a broken bone, you have something that's severely sprained, or, you can't walk, you can't stand properly, and it's going to make it worse by training, take the rest that you need at that point. So,
I think, he nailed that really well.
Spot on.
The first time I heard, are you hurt or are you injured, was in wrestling, actually, in high school. And I probably was injured. And I was like, no, I'm hurt, coach. It's fine. Put me back in there, But what I will say this, I have this funny quote. It's partly from like an old joke that I heard, but jiu-jitsu is both the cause of and solution to all your injuries. If you can just do jiu-jitsu at a pace where you're tapping early, the circulation you get from getting that adrenaline rush, from that training, the movement, the flexibility, all of that blood flow that's coming back into, like, especially your knees and shoulders, which get really bad blood flow day to day, right? You'll feel your injuries get better faster just because of that extra circulation. The trick is to go back to training without aggravating, without making it worse. And of course, there's those, okay, you have a hyperextended elbow, definitely take your 2 weeks, right? You have like a mini sprain and movements in your knees are a little rough, take the time, sure. Because it's something that's really important to me, actually, to build in my kids, in the kids class. I'm not saying all adults are like this, but there are some. But I see it a lot with the kids, especially if I could be a little tough here, my mama's boys. As soon as there's a little bump and they feel some discomfort, they kind of read the room for a second. And they're like, okay, is this okay? Okay, hold on, let me see.
They're looking for that reaction.
They look at mom, they're like, oh, mom will make me feel better, and immediately tears. And like, oh, let me go get some of that, And I get it, trust me. When I see a little kid cry, it hurts, but I'm like, we got to toughen up. So when I look at him, I'm like, okay, let's take a look at it. You're 100%, you're good. Okay, ready to go back in there? Cool. Let's push through. So understanding how to push through the discomfort, the bruising, scratches, little things like that, is super important. I think especially with kids nowadays, you don't want to harp on an injury, on a small injury, on some discomfort, some pain. You want to learn how to push through. And going back to adults, if this is a reoccurring thing, right, you have to take a look at why is this happening? it's not happening for any other reasons other than two things. One, you're not tapping, which again, my warriors, you want to go out on your shield again, like us, you know. Or two, like, I hate to say this, but like you have a really messed up training partner that's intentionally trying to hurt you, and they know exactly how to hurt you, right?
Yeah.
Very rare, don't see it often. It's usually people that get weeded out, right? So if you have this reoccurring injury, you got to look at like, why is this happening? Like, oh, I keep getting caught in this Kimura. I keep trying to muscle out of it, and then, you know, it's aggravating, right? So to my guys that are trying to have longevity in the sport, I repeat, tap early, tap often. And if your ego's there, perfect. Then let that will to not want to lose fuel your training and your discipline. That moment where you're sitting on the couch, you're like, man, like I feel like I should just stay here and skip practice. Remember how hurt your elbow's? Like, no, I gotta fix this thing that's happening to me, right? There's a technical reason. Maybe coach is gonna teach today the proper defense, and it's never gonna happen again. Like let that fear of missing out kind of push you, you know. So yeah, like some feedback for my guys that are getting injured often. Tap early, tap often, and look how to solidify your defenses there.
Absolutely. Something I absolutely love and adore that you do is being extremely articulate. I mean, you teach so well, very explicitly, you know, this is how to do it this way. And, you know, I know, and I've seen online coaches, you know, or I've experienced coaches that's, you know, I'm trying to move and I say, oh, I don't know what to do here. And they'll say, oh, I'll show you. And then they get in the position and then they say, this is how you move. Okay, you know, it's a different kind of communication. It's that kinesthetic communication. But you're able to do that, of course. But on top of that, you're able to explicitly say, okay, move your left arm behind your hip. Move like this, right? Get your hips underneath theirs. Very explicit directions. And I mean, I've had the experience of having you be my coach at a tournament, and I'm like, it's excellent, you know, and it's a massive skill. And I appreciate it.
I think that's also kudos to you, though, too, being a good listener, because there are people that I see that compete that they don't listen to their coaches. They go, and I've seen it being back there and watching, and their coaches do this, do that, do this, and they don't listen at all. They just are going off of whatever they see and just running into it. Their adrenaline gets the best of them. But that's really good from a student perspective to listen to your coach and to implement that. Because sometimes we can't see what we're doing and how easy something is there for like a quick submission or a better position to be in. And your coach sees it and he can call it out. And then you say, oh, thank you.
Oh,
you know,
the adrenaline in there is insane.
Yeah.
You know, we know it's like, oh, I know you know how to do this. You just can't see it. And 2 words are going to open it up. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's such a great point. No matter how great of a coach anyone has, if you do not listen, it's not going to matter. You know, some of my coaches have talked to me, you know, I'm coaching this guy. I'm telling him what to do and he's not listening. It's like, that's something that you need to work on with that student, right? It's like how you guys can communicate when you're in there. I learned a long time ago that I can't coach anyone as well as I do the students that I've built and I've taught from the inside out, right? Because of what he just described. I use very specific language. And not just that, even the culture, right? There was a student at the gym known for leg locks. So I'd be like, all right, I'd say this person's name, and they're like, oh, go for a leg lock, you know? So part of it was that.
That's cool, like secret code.
Yeah, right? Exactly. But going back to it, like I said, I was never really super gifted at jiu-jitsu. I had to work for it. So every problem you guys have had, like I said, I've had to deal with it. I've had to fix it. So when you guys come to me with these problems, I'm like, oh, dude, I know exactly what's going wrong. You're just missing this element. You know, it's usually your hips in the wrong placement. You're not framing correctly. You're overusing aggression. Maybe there's a timing issue. These are all things that I've had to go through, fail, fix, and like I got your answers ready to go, right? With natural athletes and guys that are super athletic that have never had to run into those problems, they don't always have the answers for you because they don't know what that's like. Their body has always just done it naturally. They've never had to like put it in that part of their brain where they had to articulate it. They've always just been able to do. I wasn't that lucky. I had to break it down and figure it out, right? So because I communicate with my students so often, I know the problems they have. I know the games. I'm there all day, every day. I know what direction they want to go to, and it's easier for me to guide them with the language that I use every day at the gym, right? And even sometimes a little special code like that, you know? But I will say the worst thing for coaches in this regard is having a student at a tournament that doesn't listen, is getting scored on, is getting destroyed, and then wins. Because he just pulls it out and he wins it. And especially someone that can do this consistently. As a coach, you're just like, this is going to be twice as hard to get through to him now.
Yeah, exactly.
Because when you do something wrong and you have success at it, how do you tell a guy to stop doing it?
They're reinforced on the bad behaviors. Yeah.
But as coaches, we know it's a ticking time bomb. Because eventually it's like, you're not going to be able to get away with that. And it's like, okay, how do we get ahead of this problem now? We have to work together, right? So there's always that synergy between coach and student. And like I said, Michael's great at it. I already knew when he was in there, I know his game, I know where he's going, I know what he's trying to do, little reminders about what he's missing, because I know the lights are bright, there's a lot of sound around, it's hard to concentrate.
The sun's in my eyes.
All of it. So I think a big part of being a good coach is understanding and having gone through the problems your students are going through and looking within your own journey. How did I fix them? What did I do to make it better, right?
You lead by example.
Exactly.
Yeah, you've gone through it. And I think that's what makes the best coaches and mentors, in my opinion, people that have gone through it, that can explain it and say, hey, I've been in your shoes. I know what it feels like. This is how you get through it. I think that's a lot more impactful to students when they hear that, opposed to somebody that may necessarily trained, maybe they trained a few years and then they became a coach and they just stuck with coaching more so and they don't train as often. I like that.
This is where, I have my own critiques of like coaches and instructors as well. Just like we talked about plateauing as a grappler, you can plateau as a coach. This is where my hot take here. I'm not a big fan of like curriculums because they can become a crutch that'll weaken you over time as an instructor. If on the curriculum, there's a move of the day, and that move heavily favors people with light gear limbs. I look at my class, and all my short limb people are there. Are you going to follow that curriculum? Well, that's what it says on the schedule. You go in there, you teach these moves that aren't built for the right student, but as a coach, you're like, nope, that's the curriculum. That's what I'm doing. And you can't look at the room and say, okay, what's best for this room? And I make it sound, it's a hard thing to do. It takes time. There's some trial and error to it. But as a coach, I think you should always be pushing yourself technically to understand not just your game and your body type, but body types that you've never had the luxury of like being, right? If you're an ultra heavyweight, you're slow, you're crushing. If you're a lightweight, you're moving nonstop. So the technical differences in just those two weight classes is something as a coach that you have to be very cognizant of. If you're teaching a heavyweight move on a light day, good luck. And there's overlap. There's the fundamental concepts that reach from lightweights to heavyweights, right? But as a coach, I think that's something that you really have to be able to do, is look at your room and be like, okay, what's best for the room, people's skills, people's build? Because the best instructors I saw would go teach a seminar somewhere. 200 people in the room, all different weight classes, all different levels. Guys it's their first week, guys that have been doing it 30 years. And in a 1-hour seminar, they could blow everyone's mind in the room. And that's like some of the highest levels I think you can attain as an instructor, is being able to look at the room, understand your fundamental concepts, and be able to reach the day 1 guy, the year 20 guy.
I think that's awesome, because then you're seeing growth out of everybody and everybody's getting value from that session, opposed to just a select few. I think that's what makes you a great instructor.
Well, again, I've also fluctuated in weight. I've gotten down to as low as 170. I've been up in the 230s, 240s, right? So that the feel of both those weight classes is what kind of opened up that epiphany for me. I'm like, oh man, at 170, I could invert, I can berimbolo. At 230, good luck, man. You're getting crushed.
I've trained at, those gyms that have a curriculum that's, okay, in North America, everybody is doing the same thing this week. And I'm like, I'm at the time, a relatively new guy. Like I'm in there, week, second month. And I'm like, how the heck am I supposed to do this move I don't even remember the name of? It's a transition from, to me, it was complicated at the time. I was like, okay, lockdown, invert, and then I was like, doing what? You know, how the heck am I supposed to do rubber guard? That makes no sense.
Right.
You know, and that's just what everybody teaches. I'm like, that's crazy. And that's an incredible skill that you have that I've seen. And I couldn't believe it when you first said that you'd walk into the room, see, okay, I have, you know, XYZ people here. These people are have a competition coming up. These people, you know, whatever. And we just had a competition. This is what we were struggling with. This is what we're going to work on today. And I'm like, that's crazy to me. That's insane. You just pull from your encyclopedia knowledge of jiu-jitsu what to work on for everybody, or at least, you know, specialize on for people.
I mean, I think sometimes I'm sitting there like before class, and it'll be like 5 or 10 minutes. I'm just sitting there and I'm just looking, and it's just kind of figuring it out, right? And sometimes people just like come up and they sit next to me and they'll start talking to me, and I was like, hey man, give me like 2 minutes, yeah. Like I know it just looks like I'm sitting here just looking off to the distance, like no, like the wheels are turning, you know. I just want to make sure that I don't want. There's 3 facets of jiu-jitsu that I always keep in mind. Jiu-jitsu as a sport for tournaments, competition. Jiu-jitsu for self-defense and MMA. Being able to defend yourself, you want to go in a fight, it's a martial art, absolutely. And the art, the theories, the concepts, the deeper knowledge. So those are always like the 3 like pillars I have when I'm also looking at what to teach. Like he said, we're coming closer to competition. Okay, we're staying in the sport world a little bit more. Okay, I have my guys that are a little bit more physical, aggressive, guys that need a little bit more of like that adrenaline rush. Awesome. Let's go into like the self-defense, the intensity, the movement, stuff like that, right? Fighting against like explosive movements, for example, very common. And then looking at just self-defense. I'm very proud that we have lightweights to heavyweights. We have guys that have won world championships at the IBJJ level. I have a mom with 3 kids. When I say jiu-jitsu for all, I mean it.
Yeah, all walks of life. It doesn't matter.
All walks of life. So when I see a room and I have that, I have my 120-pound girl and my 240-pound ultra heavyweight, like, I know where the overlap is. I got you guys. And those are the 3 pillars that I kind of take a look at. Like, okay, how can we incorporate that?
Yeah.
One more thing I want to touch on for communication that I think is so awesome is you're a trilingual, you know, instructor. You speak English, Spanish, and I don't even know if you speak Portuguese, but I know you've been working on instruction in sign language.
Yeah.
And, you know, what kind of, you know,
fuels that.
you know, what fuels it, I guess.
I can give you the guy's name.
Yeah.
Yeah. His name is Sam. Shout out Sam.
Shout out Sam. Love you, man.
Yeah.
Love you, man. There you go.
I don't have full sign language, but because of him. So he's one of my deaf students, and he came in. You know, we talked over texting. There is a guy that knows sign language that's a brown belt that comes and visits us a few times a week as well. Don't get me wrong, but because of Sam, I've kind of I started picking up some jiu-jitsu sign language. You know, escape, triangle, choke, you know, lock. Simple things. You know, you're progressing well. Good job. Little things like that. And sorry if I'm butchering that, guys. But I'll be honest, it wasn't jiu-jitsu that fueled like the wanting to attain that knowledge. It was Sam.
That's awesome.
He's a cool guy. He has my sense of humor. We laugh. We're always with barely understanding each other.
Yeah.
We are cracking each other up, right? And I'm like, just having a personality, I want to communicate better with that guy. So I do my best, you know. And it's funny because he competes and he does really well. He does. Taking some gold medals. Yeah. But trying to coach someone that can't hear you is a whole nother animal, man.
Yeah.
You know, you're no longer screaming. You're just emoting as hard as you can to escape, man. And I hope he looks at me. God, escape it.
Especially if he turns the other way, away from the coach corner.
Other way. And it's like, it's me and the guy that also helps us with sign language. And we're both just there, animated and quiet as hell, you know? It's one of the most interesting experiences I've had as coaching.
Yeah, I think that shows your character though too as a person, because I think there are a lot of people out there that wouldn't give the time or day to want to learn those things for somebody to make them feel more comfortable, you know, in their space, and then shows that you're going the extra length to learn those things because you like him as a person and he's dedicated to getting better at jiu-jitsu. that you're saying, hey, you're dedicated to me. I'm going to be dedicated to you. I want to communicate more with you. You don't just see him as a student, you see him as a friend, and you want to see that progression. So the fact that you're taking those extra steps to get there so that you can build a stronger relationship with him is super cool of you, man.
You know, a lot of what I do is just fueled by passion. After so many years of doing jiu-jitsu, the passion for jiu-jitsu is still there. But there's a new passion with coaching. It's just helping people, seeing them progress, seeing them evolve, seeing the little steps that they do to improve themselves every day. One day kind of come to like fruition in one big day where you see suddenly a big change in their confidence. So I make sure that when I talk to other instructors, be careful when you're building your school not to build your own prison. You know, you have a passion for this. You have all this like desire to build something. Don't build it in a way where you're eventually going to get sick of it. I make sure that when I walk in, I'm not like a traditional school where I make a bunch of people revere me, bow to me. I put a bunch of pictures of myself everywhere. I want to have really good communication with my students because you're the reason I'm here, my student. You know, I want to make sure that like I understand your goals. I understand what you're trying to achieve, what you want here. I want to make sure if you don't want to be a competition guy and I'm yelling at you to like, you're a competition guy, like, what's going on here? Like, I just, you know, I'm like, okay, you know. So that's a big part of what fuels me as an instructor. It's just like I have a passion for helping people, you know, and I get to do it through this art that I love so much. So I'm a real lucky guy in that sense.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. Well, one thing I'll touch on, then one more question, then we'll jump into the lightning round. So I asked Jose, the brown belt who can interpret sign language. I asked him, like, well, how can I best, you know, communicate with Sam? And he's like, oh, just learn the alphabet. He can spell everything. I was like, oh, that's great, because he's, you know, one of my favorite training partners. I love rolling with him just because we match in size, but he's also, you know, like you said, he's got a great personality. Love that.
Yeah.
So I know one time you had mentioned previously, maybe just in passing, I don't know, back at the previous studio, it was just late nights are more common there. Something about, you know, Joey Diaz. And I don't know, I wanted to bring that up. I just got to ask, how do you know him?
Again, we're very friendly. Like, we're not super close friends. We're not talking every day.
Sure.
But I will say, really one of the nicest people I've ever met. So he was training at a gym in North Hollywood that I would visit. And then he was there. I'm like, hey, dude, you're Joey Diaz. Yeah, cool. And just like anyone, he's showing up and he's trying his best. And he's got a lot of enthusiasm. And every time I was there, I would see him there. I'm like, all right, man, this guy's consistent. Try to help him out. And man, he was very kind. But then once in a while, like, you know, you're talking and then he'd go on a rant. And it would be the funniest rant you've ever heard.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to go too, because they're about his personal life, you know.
Yeah, sure.
But he went into a rant about his in-laws. That to this day I remember. It's hilarious, right? And like that shows you like a really important part of jiu-jitsu is the characters you get to meet on the mats, right? And again, I only, you know, handful of practices. I helped him out whenever I could. To this day, there'll be times he'll still like message me happy birthday on Facebook.
That's
so cool.
I mean, it's been years and still I'm like, man, like he really is like what they say he is, you know? And again, like he's in the celebrity sphere and, like I've trained with a lot of celebrities, but he's got to be the funniest dude I've ever trained with.
That's awesome.
Super cool personality, man.
So we like to do this segment towards the, you know, end of our podcast, the quote, something that really speaks to you. So I don't know what that is for you.
So there's two quotes that I say very often. One is about my personal journey and one is about my journey as a coach, right? For my personal journey, you know, when I think about how I made it to this point, there was a point where I realized there's going to be people that were going to be stronger than me at jiu-jitsu, faster, much more athletic, even more technical. I always made sure nobody loved jiu-jitsu more than me. I sacrificed for it. I gave everything I possibly could to it, and it gave me that and much more in return. But that's something that I made sure I always stuck to once it clicked in there. Just love jiu-jitsu, and it's going to love you back.
Love that.
Yeah. And then as a coach, very easy to let your ego go crazy as a coach. I mean, some places you can start a cult with jiu-jitsu. It gets kind of crazy out there, right? I never forget this, and I always remind my students, you know, in your own journeys and your success, and even mine, I remember one thing. I am because we are. Mm-hmm. It's because of you guys and me together working that we built this. Mm-hmm. It is not just me. It is all of us together, right? So just making sure I always keep that in mind when I try to think about what's important at the gym. You know, all of us working together to be better.
Yeah. And you didn't get there by yourself. You had people that had a positive input in your life or were mentors in your life that kind of shaped who you were. And, you know, you didn't just get there by yourself. It's a team effort.
Mentors, training partners, friends. I could be here for hours talking about those great influences.
Love that.
All right. And the final segment we'd like to do is the rapid fire question. Okay. Ron likes to call it quick pitch because that's baseball. Okay. We'll still call it quick pitch. Okay. All right. So, don't think too hard about it. Just, you know, quick answers. Favorite submission?
The one my opponent gives me. Or Kimura.
Or Kimura. There we go. Your favorite belt you've ever worn?
Color-wise?
Color-wise.
Purple.
Yeah. Purple.
Everybody says that.
That's what they say. There you go. Any reason for that?
It just has more swag behind it.
Swag. Yeah. Purple is kind of sick.
It looks really good in white, blue, and black gis.
That's true. All right. Here's a hot button one. Ecological or traditional, you know, drilling?
Both. There's room for both. I don't think one fits all. I think you should be able to take the best of both.
I like that.
Absolutely. Gi or no gi? Because everybody says the gi is dead.
No, especially young guys, wait till you get older. You're going to love that gi. You're going to wish you did a little more of it. Yeah. Because the wear and tear of no gi is high. It's going to be harder to do it when you're older. You're going to be happy. The saying I always say, because my classes are half and half. Gi and no gi, two halves of a whole grappler. Little material shouldn't stop you. Someone being in shorts and a rash guard shouldn't stop you. No both. Stop being lazy.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And then the biggest accomplishment that you've had so far as a coach?
I think he touched on
it.
Man,
that one, it's hard to make that if I can go into the story of it real quick.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, that was the last question.
It was actually in my kids' class.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of, don't get me wrong, there's a laundry list of special moments. But one of the ones that I feel is like one of my biggest accomplishments as a coach, I didn't want to teach kids. I was like, I teach adults. I teach professional. I'm not running a daycare. I was very
It's not a daycare.
Yeah, I love teaching kids now. They're just as enthusiastic. And if you do it right, it feels even better than seeing like the adults get good and win championships. I had this young girl that came to me from another gym. And her first day, she had a lot of fire. She was ready to fight. She came in. She had some skills. The second she was in a bottom position, she would start crying uncontrollably, like a panic attack. And then I found out later that her former coaches had thrown her into a tournament too soon. She had been stuck under her competitor. And instead of tapping because she was having a panic attack, she didn't want to let everyone down. So she just gritted it out and was tortured down there, right? And again, this is where, like coaches, you have to prepare your athletes just even for those scenarios, right? Tap early, tap often, or make sure they're training hard so that they go in there and perform. But this little girl came to me super traumatized. She was one of my first kid students. And I was like, I don't know if this is for me, man. I almost quit teaching kids. I was like, this is a lot. Like, there should be a professional here, you know? This is genuine trauma. But her dad put a lot of trust in me, so I did my best. So every day, just working on it. And a few months later, she was stuck in a bottom position where normally she'd be crying. And she was giggling as she was escaping. Oh. She was laughing and escaping and having a good time. And I remember thinking, like, okay, if, like, I die tomorrow, like, I've done something good. You know, this is going to be past my lifetime. She's going to be a better daughter, a better mother someday, a better wife, just because she was able to kind of find this new strength and get over this trauma, you know? So that was a real special moment. And that was a moment that, like, I hold on to, you know, as a coach. I was like, okay, this is special. This is more than just teaching some ass kicking, you know? Mm-hmm. So yeah,
I think that also goes to your mental toughness. Like you had said earlier, when you do jiu-jitsu, you have to be mentally tough. And I think that it's attributed to your mental toughness is that you did not give up, you know, and all the other stories you've said, I could just tell you're mentally tough, but I love that story. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's about it for time. We appreciate you being on so much, Alex.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And
Thank you guys for having me. This was fun, man.
Where
Thank you so much.
where can people find you?
We are Forge Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Academy. We are in Van Nuys, Lake Balboa. Feel free to find us on Instagram, Forge Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Academy. Look for the gold triangle. That's us. We also have a kids program, Forge Kids Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Find us on Instagram, online, Yelp, you name it. We're actually working on a kids foundation soon. We're working on a nonprofit for kids. We're looking to help underprivileged kids find their way into jiu-jitsu, super needed. We're also trying to work with special needs kids, talking to some people that work with kids with autism. So we're hoping to kind of do some good in the community for the kids too. So
Love
just
that.
a shout out if anybody has any resources for us or anything like that. We're happy to hear from you guys.
Absolutely. If you want to come test the waters, come out, come visit us, get a class in, get a roll in, and we'd love to have
Sunday open mats are great.
you. Sunday
Yeah.
open.
Please.
mats.
I'm gonna have to come. I'm gonna have
Please.
to come now.
All
I'm gonna
right.
get your instructor.
If I don't see you tap though, we're gonna have a problem, sir. All right, You
I'm gonna
tap
be
out.
out. I'm gonna be one of those other stories he's talking about.
This guy wouldn't tap. His elbows are gone. Awesome. And thanks for guys for watching. And remember, for higher expectations and higher standards, choose the higher advantage. Thanks so much.
Oof.
Have a good one.